We actually met on a website about 15 years ago. Chris was ready for a committed relationship, and I had been single for so many years, it just wasn't really on my radar. And so it was hard for me to give up that life and commit to one person.
You know, I was more ready to cut off all the people that I was tricking with. They didn't matter to me. But there was somebody else on his side, and I didn't know about it until some mutual friends conversing because he had the same name. So like, oh, you're not that Chris. And I'm like, what other Chris could there be? When I first found out that there was another Chris involved and something was going on, I was like, oh, again? Because I dealt with this before.
Chris
and I
had
thought,
had other relationships, and I really hadn't.
Yeah, I mean, I'd been
For a
involved
long
with
time.
somebody, and he had a whole thing going on with a straight neighbor up the street, and it had been going on for a decade, and didn't tell me about it. But there was always this, like, what's going on? Something else is going on. And
You know, we're all products
then-
of our
yeah.
history,
yeah,
and it takes some work to maybe overcome some of those walls.
So the reason we went to counseling was just to get on the same page again, because I felt like, okay, I had been building up a level of trust that just dropped. I wouldn't call it unfaithful because there was no real commitment there yet, but there was talk of it and there was movement towards that. And it was more the deception to me. It was more like, tell me, I can handle it. I can handle just about anything, but I need to know. And that's where I felt like the trust had been broken. So we went back to figure out how that could come back.
Do you trust me now?
Oh shit, no. Absolutely, yes, of course.
How did the counseling help, though?
I think because for me, he reconnected why I wanted to be with him. That was at the forefront anyway. I had been invested and why did I get invested? Well, I had to reconnect with that. So,
And for me, I think what I got out of it was learning how to really communicate. The therapist was very big on communication, and I tend to maybe hide things. And so that's when I really started communicating and receiving what Chris was feeling. So that made the big difference for me in the counseling, yeah.
I think he got a lot more vulnerable in the counseling too. You did. Because you were
Well, you
very...
talk about things in counseling that you wouldn't normally.
Well, there's that,
your
but I mean,
life.
just in general, you were very much like, this is my life, this is my thing, this is, there wasn't much penetration there. Sorry about that word. There was no, you had walls.
Yes,
And that's something that
it did.
The walls-
did break down some, those walls. That's true.
because there was a lot of resistance. There was a lot of, I want this, but I want that. And so we had to
Yeah.
get behind
You
that.
know, when you've been alone, when you've been single for so many years, form habits and build walls, and those have to be broken down. And I think that's what counseling did for me. I was used to doing everything for myself and being in charge of myself and the world around me. And all of a sudden I had to share that. And that counselor showed me the way.
Yeah.
And his patience and persistence. Chris was very persistent. He knew what he wanted and he got it. You always get your way, don't you?